Greetings, you're listening to the Cold Call Lawcast, the Minnesota Law School podcast featuring students from the University of Minnesota Law School, the University of St. Thomas School of Law, and the Mitchell-Hamline School of Law. Welcome everyone to the Cold Call Lawcast. I'm Mitch, a law student at the University of St. Thomas School of Law, and with me are my co-hosts Hannah from the University of Minnesota, Anthony from the Mitchell-Hamline School of Law, and Abby from the University of Minnesota Law School. Right now we have Colleen Case, who is a 3L from the University of St. Thomas, my alumni.
Not an alumni yet.
What? Aren't you an alumni if you're
No,
just
you
if
have
you're
to
going
graduate.
there?
Not saying you're not going to graduate. I'm just saying it's not.
I think that's what you're insinuating. She'll be talking about improv and her improv comedy troupe, Sua Sponte. So, Colleen, thank you for coming on to our podcast. And so, just kind of getting a little bit, learning a little bit more about your background. So, what made you decide to apply to the University of St. Thomas? Kind of what was your process? And are you originally from the area, or did you somehow find St. Thomas out of Minnesota and decide to come on down to the cold state?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So I am actually from Hudson, Wisconsin. I went to the
What was that, Anthony?
That wasn't out loud.
It's barely Wisconsin, but it still counts. So yeah, go Pack. And then I ended up going to the U for undergrad. I took a few years off, and then so I was 2 years out of school when I went back. So I actually applied to all three schools in Minnesota. I had intended to apply to more schools, but just got lazy, and applications were kind of expensive. So,
it's true.
I loved all three schools here, but I ended up getting the best scholarship offer from St. Thomas. So I went to the admitted applicant day, and I fell in love with the school. I love the commitment that St. Thomas has to diversity of thought and also their dedication to their mission. They try to educate the whole person, which I think is very valuable. So I went to admitted applicant day, loved it, and have had a great time ever since.
And you're currently a 3L, so you've been here. I think you're the longest serving law student that we've ever had on so far. And so,
Besides Lacey.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, besides people who have already become lawyers, people who are still in law school.
Only 3Ls. That's true.
Yeah.
Wait, so 1L wasn't horrible for you?
I survived. It was actually pretty bad. It was there were some times that were really bad. And I got my grades back actually after the first semester. And I made a personal decision to myself that I was never going to ask for my rank. So I'm living in ignorance of not knowing where I am in the class. And luckily, none of the jobs that I've had required me to get my rank, so I don't know where I am. I'm going to just do my best, and I survived, so here I am.
At St. Thomas, you ask for your rank? Do you get quartiles? Do you get quartiles without asking for a rank? Or do you get no information about ranking stuff?
So, if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. I've never asked, so I don't know what you get. Couldn't tell you.
Mitchell-Hamline they show your rank right on your transcript. It's quite terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, no, thank you. Luckily we don't have that. We have to ask for it after every semester. So I don't know, and I never want to know. I'm not a number. I'm so much more than that. I'm a human being. My grades don't define me.
So I actually, they don't define us, guys.
Wait. Can you repeat? I'm taking notes now. At the U, just for informational purposes, I think maybe you can ask for your rank. I'm not sure because, again, like you said, I'm not even going to look into it or ask. But they do publish quartiles in a separate document. So you can look at your GPA and then you can find out which quarter of the class you're in. But they don't, I think on graduation, they publish a rank or you can ask for it.
See, a friend of mine who went to the University of Minnesota he graduated back in the 90s, he said he actually never looked at any of his grades ever, even when they were posted. And so I think that's what I'm probably going to do too. He basically just assumed, and this is kind of what I'm going to assume too, that if I were to like fail a class or something, they'll come and talk to me about it or something. I'll find out. So my plan is probably not to look at my grades. It's just to do as best as I can on every test
if
and
it's
not.
important. They'll send an email.
Yeah,
exactly.
If you're getting kicked out, they'll probably
They'll probably tell me.
Yeah, they'll pull you out.
Yeah, they'll probably tell me about it, right?
Yeah.
They email
So-
us when like someone gets pickpocketed on the other bank of the river, so they'll probably let you know if you're getting kicked out
Right. Excellent. Well, that's how I'll probably figure out my grades.
by being pickpocketed.
Yes. And so what has kind of been the best parts of St. Thomas and going to school there, and some of the worst parts of going to law school at the University of St. Thomas?
So not just to plug my own group, but the best part has definitely been improv. I'm so lucky and fortunate that I found this group and that I was there when it started. So a few different things that we've got to do with improv. We were performing at the Mission Awards, which is an award ceremony that St. Thomas does every spring. So they give awards to like student from every class, and they also give awards to professors and staff who have lived out the mission. I think it's also like voted on, but you can submit different people for that. But we were like the halftime performance, and so
cool.
We do have performances like through the year. But it was like cool that we got this huge audience that they didn't know what they were in for. So we were the halftime performance, and that was really fun, doing it in front of all your professors. But I guess Lowe's, since this is called the cold call,
Yes.
there's definitely been some times where I've been like cold called, and I said the dumbest thing. Like the dumbest thing came out of my mouth, and I was like, I did not know I was that stupid. But I am.
It's good. It's great. You learn both how stupid and how smart you are.
It's a roller coaster. It really is.
You can be both. I think.
And so do you feel like the cold calling has been detrimental, or do you think it's been a good process for you? I guess given the nature and the name of our podcast, how has cold calls been for you?
Yeah, so this year in BA, I was actually, or business associations, I was super worried about getting called on. And this professor, he's German, and it terrifies me. I was shitting my pants. I was like, he would make you Iraq every single answer. And I was just so nervous to do it.
He would make you Iraq your cold calls?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
so
terrible.
He divides the whole class off in sections. So he'll be B1, facts, B2, Iraq. And so I was Iraqing this day, and he called on me, Miss Case, please Iraq this case for me. And guess what? I did it, and it wasn't that bad. So I think you can like use those experiences where you've maybe didn't, unfortunately, read the night before, or you just like say something stupid, and you know what? Maybe tonight, maybe I'll read. Maybe I'll study a little bit more.
Right.
So you can use those bad experiences to help motivate you.
That was a great accent, by the way. That was German, right?
Yeah.
I got a touch of Russian as well, but I don't know.
Yeah, my accents aren't the best, but improv is helping me with that. So.
I thought it was good. Yeah, we had Sam still sitting here in the back row, but we had our contracts professor was Israeli, so we had like I don't think we had any German professors, but we had a really good accent and kind of the same like militaristic calling style.
Those are the worst.
Learn a lot though.
And so why did you decide to get into improv at St. Thomas?
Yeah, so as we were talking before, I've always wanted to get into stand-up comedy, and I've always just had a passion for it. And so I saw a whiteboard. People at St. Thomas, when they're trying to get people to come to meetings or speakers, they'll always post some things on whiteboards. So, you know, when you're in the big classroom, you can see it, and that's a good way to get your message out. So I ended up seeing like, you think you're funny, or do you like to laugh or like to make people laugh? Come to improv. Like, we're starting a club. So I was like, this is perfect for me. So I walk into the room when it's supposed to start, and I was like the only one in there. And I was like, okay, great. This is a joke. The joke's on me. It wasn't.
Would
but
be a good bit, though. Yeah.
The first like 10 minutes, it was just me and the guy that started the club, and he was like, there'll be more people coming, I swear. And so that was my 1L year. And actually this group who was supposed to be having a group meeting in the classroom. By accident, they thought it was empty, but it had been reserved. Walked into the room by accident and ended up like practicing with us. So, yeah.
What were they supposed to be doing?
So they were supposed to just be working on a group project, and they came in and they're like, "Okay, well, you guys are here now, so we're just gonna play some games." So we actually got one of our members from that, and yeah, so I fell in love with it, and I'm fortunate enough to have been the only one. So there were 6 members initially starting off. So I was the only 1L, and the other 5 were 2Ls. So they all graduated this year. And so we did have like a preliminary audition last spring. So we have 3 members now. So we're looking for a few more to kind of fill that out. And I'm just so excited. I hope we can keep it going. It's done wonders for me in terms of like therapy and dealing with like mental health. It's just an hour every week where you can go and let out your stress and not have to worry about getting cold called or other things. So,
And so do you feel that improv has actually helped you become, that's going to help you become a better lawyer for when you graduate?
absolutely. I think improv skills transition so well into the legal profession. It teaches you to think on your feet, you problem solve, and you learn about resilience and just coming back from things that not necessarily went the way you planned. And it's also great for active listening. So things not necessarily for, trial lawyers, but for anything. I think it's just teach really important skills. So.
And do you feel that someone has to be, very charismatic or extroverted in order to be good at improv?
No, although that is a common misconception, but I do think it helps people get started, and I think that's where people will want to, if they're extroverted, they'll probably play those games or get involved earlier. But I think that's a misconception because it's not just about like being funny or being able to just stand up and talk. It's about creating like an alternate reality and just creating a new world and going with that. So it's about people willing to try new things, and I think it just takes the first step. So those extroverted people are going to try that first, but it's really for everyone, and I think it just takes a little bit of practice. So.
Excellent. Well, we here at and my co-hosts, we're all going to take part in playing a improv game that you have brought to us. So
yeah, so we can start with just a simple warm up, but before that. We just like to go over the 3 rules of improv. I kind of combined them, made them a little bit different than what I have taught. So the first rule is called, or it's not called, what it is you don't deny a gift. So if someone comes to you with a suggestion and I'm saying, hi, let's, grandma, let's go to the mall. Something that you wouldn't say is, I'm not your grandma, or we're not at the mall. It's, about saying yes and to the suggestion. So if I'm coming to you with something, it's not necessarily just saying no, but it's like denying what's happening and what reality that I've just created. And then the second one is something that I struggle with, and I know a lot of people struggle with. So it's don't go for those low-hanging fruits. So those are like the butt jokes, the poop jokes, the sex jokes, the fart jokes. Those are funny.
That's all I have. That's
right?
all I got, guys.
But the thing is, we're so much smarter than that, and those are just so easy. So it's
I like
kind
that
of
rule, yeah.
Yeah, don't necessarily have to like go for like swearing, because I mean sometimes that can be funny, but just don't overdo it. So try to keep that in mind. And then the last rule is just have fun. So I think that's pretty simple, and we can probably just jump right into warm-ups.
Sounds great.
All right, so the first game is called One Word Story. So we're all going to just create a story using one word. So we'll go around the circle, and we'll each say a word just like the title would suggest. And it can be weird, it can be not weird, it can be an actual story. Sometimes they aren't even sentences. Just try to think on your feet, and since this is the first time most of you guys are doing improv, so we'll go.
I mean, I've seen Whose Line Is It Anyway?
It's the same thing, yeah.
Times,
so
I'm pretty much a pro.
I'm
pretty much a pro.
Oh, yeah.
So we can start. I'll start, and we'll go to Hannah. We'll go around this way. And so if you think we're at the end of a sentence, you can actually add period, and that's the end. And then the next person will start. All right, once.
Fermented.
Grapes.
Sat.
On.
A.
Llama.
And
They
had
20
utters.
dry.
Wait, dry or
Dry, crusty.
Okay, that was